Okay, welcome back to Grandma Rose's Open Pantry YouTube channel. We've been having some discussions, some episodes where we're trying to better understand Grandma Rose's low glycemic carb load cuisine, which she has been demonstrating to you on her channel for about 2 years now. But before we get started, we want to talk a little bit about the fact that the things I'm saying and the medical information I'm discussing aren't mine. They come from a book, Why We Get Sick, by Dr. Benjamin Bikman, PhD, food scientist and medical instructor at Brigham Young University. I highly recommend you get that book, and much of the information that I cover comes from that book and the research that is cataloged in the back of that book. If you're also looking for a very strict diet, low glycemic carb load cuisine diet, that's actually a diet that can reverse a lot of obesity and also pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes, and certainly reverse insulin resistance, then you'll find that information in that book. We also talk about this book, The Glycemic Carb Load Counter, a book that gives you 800 different foods and their carb counts and the low glycemic load count, as well as calories, and the glycemic index. So you can get a lot of information from those two books. Now, what I'm giving you is not medical advice from me, although, like I said, much of it is taught in medical schools across the world today as the latest information on what causes obesity, diabetes, heart attack, stroke, high cholesterol, all of these type of problems. Gut issues like Rose had, which caused us 2 years ago to go to this cuisine. It's not prescriptive to a particular individual in any way, but it's offered to you for you to use as you want to. Diabetics need to tailor Rose's dishes to their individual conditions and doctor's orders. But most diabetics know that already, but I'm just trying to cover all the bases. And keto dieters. We love keto dieters. We have done keto diets in the past several times. We recommend keto dieting as a fast way to lose weight. You can use this diet, but normally it's a little slower than keto dieters want to go during their dieting periods. Now, for maintenance, this is great. But so you might need, as a keto dieter, you might need to take more carbs or additional carbs out of some of her dishes if you're real strict. So we want you to stay on any diet, actually, that is already working for you. Any way you can help your health and improve your health, we are for it. But when you get to a point where you just have to go to maintenance, you're ready to go to maintenance, or you just have to get off of that diet for a while because you're just tired of it, then you can use Grandma Rose's dishes and tailor them to your own needs. And Rose's low glycemic carb load cuisine is the best option, again, that we know of for long-term maintenance. It's just very hard to regain your weight after you've lost it if you're on this low insulin, low sugar way of eating. And Rose has lots of recipes to give you that. So today, I promised last week, using this chart, and I'll go back through a little of this chart in just a second, that we were going to start in on fats. So before I do a preview, which I really want to do this week, we've been doing this for 5 weeks. This is the 5th episode. I do want to review a few of the things that we've covered in the previous videos today before we actually get on into the fats. But I'll give you some forewarning of the things to come, some preview of some of the things that are coming about in the discussion about fats, because some of you have been waiting for us to get to fats while we were working on an explanation of how much damage the fast carbs up here on this chart were doing to your life and health. First, fats play little role in sugar spikes and insulin spikes and weight gain. Fats play little role. Another interesting fact, healthy animal fats actually improve cholesterol problems in many lab tests in many people. Most bad cholesterol, it turns out, in much of the latest research, most of the bad cholesterol, LDL, is produced by your own body, and it is much less reliant on the foods that you eat or caused by the foods you eat. Turns out that heredity has a bigger role to play in how your body produces bad cholesterol. So fats make carbs harder to absorb. So when you're eating fats along with your meal, the fats actually prevent the absorption of carbs at the rate that they normally are absorbed. Fats depress hunger to stop cravings and snacking. And Rose never hungered and never craved since we started this low cuisine eating. Fats eaten before meals, in fact, help prevent overeating. So about 15 or 20 minutes before, you can eat some nuts or a little peanut butter or a half an egg that has fat in it, of course, and that helps you prevent overeating. And fats replace many carbs in your cuisine when you follow Rose's low carb, low cuisine, and actually replaces some of the protein also. And then there's another fact that I like to talk about at some point, and that is that the effect of fats on the brain, they actually have a positive effect on the brain. So with that, we'll actually go into a review. I don't want to actually go into the fats yet. I just wanted to give you a preview of that and then go through a review of the past few weeks that we've been discussing this chart. I call this the glycemic response eye-opener chart because it truly opens people's eyes to how the damage is done by high glycemic foods. And we hadn't really discussed fats, protein, and slow carbs much yet. We're about to go down that road in the coming episodes. But what we have here is a chart. This line represents hours, time, since you ate. And this line represents how fast the carbs shoot straight up. Are they fast carbs that go like this? Are they slow carbs that go like this? Are they proteins that basically are level? Are they fats that basically have no impact on your insulin and your blood sugar and your fat production in your body? But high glycemic load foods do have a tremendous impact. For example, if you eat some sugary food, barf candy, cake, potatoes, potato chips, you know the whole thing. It's all starches. These high glycemic load foods are all starches. Some people call them fast carbs. The reason is because within 30 to 40 minutes, they have gone straight up and hit your bloodstream. Now, this category of fast carbs are the first ones to go in your bloodstream. They're starches, and as soon as they enter the small intestines, the first 2 feet, that's approximately 2 feet, in that area, they begin to rapidly be ingested, digested and ingested. So in the previous week, we covered how high glycemic load foods go up fast, fill your blood with sugar, that creates a need for insulin, so your pancreas pumps insulin, so you have not only a sugar spike but an insulin spike, and then it begins to tail off in about an hour or two. But something funny and evil happens right there, because as the high carb load foods begin to tail off in your blood system, it creates a trigger that tells you that you're hungry and go get some Rice Krispies or some kind of sweet. And this happens over and over again. It goes up, comes down, then goes up, comes down, goes up, and you find yourself every few hours snacking at the TV or in the kitchen. Okay, so that's what high glycemic foods do to your insulin. And by the way, it turns on your fat machine. I call it my fat making machine, my fat making factory. But when the insulin goes up, it tells your body to take the sugar out of your blood, make fat out of it, and store it around on your body. So we don't want that happening. So below this line, this blue line right here, you get out of the fast carbs, and you get into fast and medium, and you get into slow carbs. As you see, they don't go up and peak and create that spike in your blood. We're going to cover slow carbs later. We're also going to cover protein, because, on a low carb diet, you eat protein. And then we're going to start today on the fats in a few minutes. But we want to say, thank the Lord, the good Lord, that most all foods in the universe are below this blue line. Slow carbs, protein, and fats. Those are the things that you can easily and with good health results combine in all kinds of ways to eat and stay healthy. And Rose has created about 600 of those dishes, 650, almost 700 now, I guess, isn't it? And so, again, we're going to start in this low carb load area and out of the starchy and high carb areas today, beginning with some information on fats. Now, a couple of more points before we start into the fats. And number one is, all carbs are not equal. Five carbs of high glycemic load carbs, sugars and starches, can create as much damage to your body and to your weight and to your insulin and blood sugar as 10 of these low glycemic carbs down in this area. So all carbs are not equal, and that's the reason the low glycemic carb load indicators were actually created. And if you want an explanation of all that, go back and review the previous videos. But the other thing I want to talk about is this cycle of high glycemic foods leads to insulin resistance, which 80% of the adults in the United States already have that, and it's bad. It causes obesity, it causes inflammation, and it's the precondition to pre-diabetes. So first, it's insulin resistance. Second, it is pre-diabetes. And third, it's type 2 diabetes. Now, this cuisine can, in many cases, reverse all three of those, but not in all cases based on the individual condition. So we promised today that we would talk about fats and why fats are included in low glycemic load or ketogenic diets. Ketogenic diets, of course, like keto or just low carb diets. And so I told you that we would stop talking so much about the fast carbs up here that cause poor health so often, and we would get into the low glycemic carb loads. So now we're talking about fats, proteins, and slow carbs that are digested past the first 2 feet of your small intestines, and they go more slowly into your bloodstream without spiking your sugar, without spiking your insulin, and without turning your fat manufacturing capabilities on in your body. So fats play a big role, but Can we get to understand that a little better? I think we could. Am I still in the picture if I sit here, Rose? Okay. So I've got some notes over here on the board, so you'll see me glancing over at that. I can't remember like I used to when I was a cause and effect instructor across the Air Force for many, many years. But anyway, so why increased fats are good in low glycemic carb load diets like the cuisine that you see Grandma Rose cooking all the time? Well, let's think for a minute. What makes us hungry in the first place? Why do we need to eat? If we didn't get hungry and didn't need to eat, we wouldn't gain weight. We'd just do without, wouldn't we? That's not much fun. But a lot of times people say, well, I don't feel full in my stomach. And they want that full feeling. And so it's like, okay, it has to do with the space in my stomach. Is it empty or is it full? And for that reason, sometimes people talk about, well, just eat a lot of fiber, extra fiber, and they take fiber and they try to use fiber to keep them feeling full. Well, let's talk about that a little bit and see if that actually is true. Because if that's true, then we could just eat a bunch of fiber till we're full, and then when we get hungry, just eat more fiber. And I don't think that will work. I think you know better than that too. So what is hunger caused by? Well, hunger is caused from body cells sensing across your body that there is low energy available in their area and in the cell. And when the body, across your whole body, begins to feel that low energy feeling, those cells, through this magnificent thing called the human body and its nervous system, send a signal somehow to the brain that says, hey, I'm feeling low on energy. Can you do something about that? Can you help me? And the brain, of course, says, sure I can. I'll tell Roy that he's hungry and to eat. Well, how exactly does the body do that? The brain sends a signal to my stomach that has nothing to do with how much is inside my stomach at the time, the volume inside my stomach. But that signal, the brain makes it feel in this area. So I feel it in this area, and I come to associate that with what we all call hunger, or we can express it, I'm empty, as opposed to being full. And we also begin to associate with eating all we can and filling that stomach up with that fullness being the satisfier of the hungry, when that fullness is not really what satisfies the hunger. It is the energy that begins to pass through your bloodstream to the cells after you eat. So the brain makes that signal felt, and we decide to go and eat. Now, as we're talking about, if you eat just fiber and you don't have any energy in that, what would happen is your hunger would just persist. You wouldn't feel that full feeling. And now we all know that carbohydrates will satisfy the cells. It'll satisfy those cells somewhat. But we know that high glycemic load carbs that we've been studying for a couple of weeks on this chart also causes another hunger pain to hit you about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. Sometime in that period, you get to wanting to go back to the kitchen and eat some more high glycemic load foods like potato chips or some other kind of snack to satisfy your hunger. So if you satisfy that hunger with high glycemic foods, you get in this cycle of eat, hunger, because that's what your body is telling you. But what we really want is something that is more satisfying for longer periods. Well, let's talk about the first one a little bit, an experiment the first example of whether fiber fills or not. There's an example, an experiment that you're all familiar with, since most all of us of any age have been in the hospital, and most of us have had IVs for several days at times because of different things that were wrong with us. Well, you give an IV to a person because they're not eating many times. And so when a person who can't eat is given an IV, if it required fullness in the stomach for you to be satisfied, then that IV would not satisfy you, and you'd have a bunch of people screaming for food, thinking they're starving to death because you've been feeding them IVs for several days. But we know that's not true. The energy in the IV goes straight into the bloodstream, and it goes across the body. And as it goes across the body, through the mechanisms in the body, then the cells have nutrition made available, energy made available to them, and the cells tell the brain, I'm completely satisfied, I don't need anything, don't tell Roy that he is hungry. And so that IV experiment that we've all been through proves that fiber by itself won't satisfy us. Well, what about carbs by themselves? What's the way we could test that a little bit? Well, you can take the IV example again, and you can just feed carbs only, just carbohydrates only, to a group of people, and then record how they react to that, how their hunger is satisfied, and how long it is satisfied. How long do they remain satisfied before they get another hunger signal? Well, they did that actually in some experiments, and you can find this discussion on page 148 on why we get sick by Dr. Benjamin Beckman. But they did that with some patients, and they recorded the results of just an IV with carbs. And then to check and see what would happen if they added some fat was added to the IVs, and they gave these people these IVs with the fat added to the same people and got the same test. And what they discovered is that the hunger was prevented better by the addition of fat in the IVs, and it was satisfied for longer periods of time without sending a hunger signal, the body was. So what that tells us is that there is good reason for the increased fats in low glycemic carb load diets, or low ketogenic diets like low carb and maybe keto. But so what we are saying is then that there is a plus for the low glycemic carb load cuisine that Rose is teaching you how to cook, because it's proved the best weight loss diet, ketogenic diets are, because and low carb diets with increased fat. The increased fat is critical. So they have proven, and even the American Diabetes Association now recommends the low glycemic cuisines, diets now with increased fats for treating diabetes. So it's becoming well known now after years of denial. But it lowers insulin resistance, which is the pre-stage of diabetes before prediabetes. It lowers your chance of prediabetes, and it lowers the chance of you actually suffering diabetes. And low glycemic carb load cuisines also give you the best chance of reversing all three of those. And today, many people are reversing all three. Now, not everybody that is a type 2 will be able to totally reduce it and get off insulin, but many, many people are. So this is our first session on fats and why fats, increased fats, in fact, are present in low glycemic carb load cuisines or ketogenic cuisines, similar to keto. So that's it for today. And next week, we'll continue the discussion on how fats impact your health and why the fats are good and are included in low carbohydrate diets. Thank you. God bless.